This is Jarrod Horak, and in this video, I will take a look at the latest Breeders' Cup Classic news, and I will also unveil my top 8 Breeders' Cup Classic contenders list. And the 2025 Breeders' Cup Classic will be held at Del Mar on Saturday, November 1st. And I will update these Breeders' Cup Classic news and contenders videos frequently in the coming weeks. And here's the latest Breeders' Cup Classic news. Antiquarian, the Jockey Club Gold Cup winner, he got a 108 buyer speed figure for his upset victory. And that was a wild renewal of that race. And he did win that race because he drew the outside post, and his outside draw allowed him to steer clear of the early trouble caused when Phileas Fogg veered in sharply under Kendrick Carmouche, and he caused a chain reaction event that led to Mindframe losing his rider, Irad Ortiz Jr. And this one is going to be targeting the Breeders' Cup Classic for trainer Todd Pletcher, and he's going to do all of his pre-Breeders' Cup Classic work at Saratoga. Now, Fierceness, Antiquarian stablemate, he ended up shipping to the West Coast and running in the Grade 1 Pacific Classic. Now, the reason they sent him out west is because they were running Mindframe in the Jockey Club Gold Cup, and they wanted to keep Mindframe and Fierceness apart, so they took Fierceness out to the West Coast, and he ended up being the second betting choice behind your 3-year-old Journalism, and Journalism was getting a 6-pound weight break. And Nysos for trainer Bob Baffert was the morning line favorite, but he scratched the morning of the race due to a foot bruise, and so that made Journalism the favorite, and then Fierceness was the second choice, and then the other horses were overmatched. So it really was a match race, and the race was really over after Nysos scratched, and then Journalism's rider Umberto Rispoli, he just took him back to last in this field, and then Fierceness, all he had to do basically was just keep a straight line, and he didn't quite do that. He ended up veering in sharply at the start, almost going over the temporary rail, but John Velasquez was able to straighten him out. He was tracking the pace inside. He made a decisive early move, and at the 1 mile mark, he was already in front in this race with a quarter of a mile to go. Journalism was trying to unwind his rally from the back of the pack, but that tactical advantage for Fierceness and that decisive early move, this race was over after a mile, basically. And Journalism did try to make a run at him in the stretch, couldn't go with Fierceness in this race, and Fierceness paid $5.20 to win. He won by more than a couple lengths over Journalism, and Journalism was clearly second best in this event. So for Fierceness, he's going to return to Saratoga Wednesday this week, and he's going to train up to the Breeders' Cup Classic. He was second in the Breeders' Cup Classic last year. Now, last year's Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile winner, Full Serrano, he returned from a long layoff, and he had an easy front-running victory in a 1-mile allowance race at Del Mar on September 1st, getting a 94 buyer speed figure. He's expected to run next in the Grade 1 Goodwood at Santa Anita at 1 1/8 on September 27th. And that race is going to determine whether he goes in the Dirt Mile or the Classic, because he did win the Dirt Mile last year, and for the Classic, he has run at 1.25 miles before. He was second in the Grade 1 Pacific Classic at Del Mar in 2024. Now, Mindframe, he just had terrible luck in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. He lost his rider early, never had a chance to run, and he ran loose for 1 mile, and he was caught by the outrider. And it does appear that he's okay, that nothing really happened to him after that incident. And he was part of the exacta in his first 7 career starts. He's a multiple Grade 1 winner. He was 3 for 3 this year prior to the Jockey Club Gold Cup. And if everything goes well, for him, he's going to train up to the Breeders' Cup Classic. Now, Sierra Leone, he lost several lengths early in the Jockey Club Gold Cup because he was his rider, Flavian Pratt, was trying to avoid fallen rider Irad Ortiz Jr., and Sierra Leone early in the race lost his action, and Pratt tried to jump over Irad Ortiz Jr. I think he ended up clipping him slightly, and Pratt almost pulled up Sierra Leone after he jumped over Ortiz. But he decided, oh, it's just going to keep running in the race. And he was at the back of the pack, and he was able to rally wide, and he finished second. He was 1.5 lengths behind Antiquarian. Now, he probably would have won that race under different circumstances, but it just didn't go his way that day. So last year's Breeders' Cup Classic winner, he's going to be back to defend his title at Del Mar, and he's going to spend September at Saratoga and then October at Belmont Park, and then he's going to ship to California. Now, White Abarrio, he was affected by the Phileas Fogg Mindframe incident in the Jockey Club Gold Cup, As Irad Ortiz Jr. was losing his balance, he actually ended up on top of White Abarrio briefly before falling to the ground. And Safi Joseph Jr., the trainer of White Abarrio, he told Daily Racing Form that White Abarrio would most likely target the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Now I'm going to cover my Breeders' Cup Classic top 8 contenders as of September 2nd of 2025. We're going to go from 8th to 1st. And my 8th Breeders' Cup Classic contender is Nysos for trainer Bob Baffert. Don't know if he's going to go in the Classic, but he's 5 for 6 lifetime. He scratched out of the Pacific Classic with a rear hoof foot bruise, and it seemed to be a minor issue. He seemed to be doing better even the morning of the race, and then the day after. Baffert seems to think that maybe it was just a minor thing, and he's going to get over it quickly. And if he does recover quickly, he's most likely going to run next in the Grade 1 Goodwood at Santa Anita on September 27th. As I mentioned, Full Serrano is targeting that race. And then after that race, then they're going to decide whether they want to run in the Breeders' Cup Classic or the Dirt Mile. So those two races could be in play depending on how quickly he recovers and if he's able to run a quality race in the Grade 1 Goodwood. He hasn't run a mile and a quarter at all in his career. So we'll see what they end up doing. If he does run well in the Goodwood, what they decide to do. Will they cut back to the mile or take a shot in the Breeders' Cup Classic? My 7th Breeders' Cup Classic contender is Antiquarian, and that breakthrough victory in the Jockey Club Gold Cup definitely puts him in the Breeders' Cup Classic picture. He's always been well regarded. He was a Grade 3 winner, but he just wasn't able to break through until that big win at Saratoga over the weekend. Now, he might have been in the right place at the right time at Saratoga on Sunday because Mindframe lost his rider. Sierra Leone had early trouble because of that. And then Antiquarian, breaking from the outside post, was able to avoid all of that trouble caused by Phileas Fogg. And he did run well in the Jockey Club Gold Cup, but he is going to have to elevate his game definitely more than run faster than he did in that Jockey Club Gold Cup if he expects to be competitive in a deep renewal of the Breeders' Cup Classic. At least it's looking like a deep renewal at this point. My 6th Breeders' Cup Classic contender is Mindframe. Now, as I said, he was 5 for 7 lifetime with 2 runner-up finishes prior to losing his rider in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. He's a consistent Maryland-bred colt. He won the Grade 2 Gulfstream Park Mile, the Grade 1 Churchill Downs Stakes, and the Grade 1 Stephen Foster earlier this year prior to his mishap in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. And if everything goes well, as I said, Todd Pletcher says he's going to train him up to the Breeders' Cup Classic. My 5th Breeders' Cup Classic contender is Journalism, and he is enjoying a nice 3-year-old season, but unfortunately for him, Sovereignty is in his division as well because Journalism is having an excellent season. He has 3 runner-up finishes this year. He won the Grade 2 San Felipe, Grade 1 Santa Anita Derby, Grade 1 Preakness, and Grade 1 Haskell. He was second to Sovereignty in the Grade 1 Kentucky Derby and Grade 1 Belmont. And then he was second to Fierceness in the Pacific Classic. Now, he's a 3-time Grade 1 winner. He competed in all 3 Triple Crown races this year. And I'm sure they would still like to earn the 3-year-old title and Horse of the Year, but he's definitely going to have to win the Breeders' Cup Classic and defeat Sovereignty if he expects to be considered for either of those titles. And for him, they just patiently handled him. I wonder if they're considering just taking him back in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Maybe that was what they were kind of thinking. They're going to try to do something different in the Breeders' Cup to try to mix it up against Sovereignty because he was placed in front of Sovereignty in the early going in his other races, but Sovereignty ran him down. And Journalism is versatile. He can be closer to the pace, but they just didn't seem to be interested at all in being anywhere near the pace in the Pacific Classic. And he came from well back. So I wonder if that's the strategy they're going to try to use against Sovereignty in the Breeders' Cup. Now for Fierceness, sometimes he's brilliant, and it was nice to see him overcome something in the Pacific Classic because he's one. Usually he needs everything to go his way, but he veered in sharply. He was behind horses down on the inside in the Pacific Classic, but the horses that were surrounding him definitely were overmatched horses. And as I said, with Nysos not in the race, the morning line favorite, and Journalism at the back of the pack, Fierceness was in a good spot to take advantage of that. And I just think that the race wasn't deep and he was able to take advantage. But I'm going to take nothing away from that victory. It was nice to see him overcome some early trouble, not and he wasn't that comfortable down on the inside, but he was able to win that Pacific Classic nicely. And he just had too big of a cushion over journalism. He just wasn't going to be able to run a horse like Fierceness down with that nice lead that he had. And he's one that he does run well on the West Coast. So that's something that I like about Fierceness. He romped in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile at Santa Anita when he was a 2-year-old. He attended a fast pace in the Breeders' Cup Classic last year, and he ended up finishing second. Sierra Leone ran him down, and then he won the Pacific Classic at Del Mar on Saturday, and the Breeders' Cups at Del Mar again. So that's the good news for Fierceness. Now, on the negative side, he's not the most reliable performer. Sometimes he throws in below par efforts like he did in the Grade 1 Champaign, the Grade 3 Holy Bull, the Grade 1 Kentucky Derby, the Grade 1 Whitney, and then he was the beaten favorite in the Met Mile earlier this year against just 3 rivals. So sometimes he doesn't bring his A game, but when he does, he's definitely a solid horse. He has good early pressing speed, and he's one that will probably work out a decent trip if he gets a good start and a good post in the Breeders' Cup Classic this year. My third Breeders' Cup Classic contender is Forever Young, and hopefully he does come back in from Japan this year. He's 8 for 11 with 3 show finishes. Now, this Japanese colt is a 2-time Grade 1 winner. He's raced twice in North America with show finishes in the Kentucky Derby and the Breeders' Cup Classic last year. Now, he did win the $20 million Saudi Cup in February, and he was third when last seen in the Grade 1 Dubai World Cup in April. He's expected to return to Del Mar for another try in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and we'll see if they end up giving him a prep race in Japan prior to the Breeders' Cup. My second Breeders' Cup contender is Sierra Leone, and he was last year's Breeders' Cup Classic winner, and he returned to top form with a strong win in the Grade 1 Whitney at Saratoga on August 2nd, and then I mentioned his Jockey Club Gold Cup runner-up finish earlier in this video. So he's in good form right now. He's a consistent closer. He's faced the starter 13 times with 5 wins, 5 runner-up finishes, and 3 show finishes. So he always runs his race. He's banked more than $7 million in his career as well. So he's a horse that certainly, if he can get the right race flow, he can win it, but he's always in the top 3. So if you're playing trifectas in any race, you just have to use Sierra Leone. He's one of the most consistent handicap performers in that handicap division out there. He just goes out there, he runs his race every time. And my top ranked Breeders' Cup Classic contender is Sovereignty. He's the top 3-year-old in the country. He's won his last 4 graded routes, including the Grade 1 Kentucky Derby, Grade 1 Belmont, and Grade 1 Travers. And he's 3 for 3 at 1.25 miles, and he ran the fastest race of the year when he won the Travers by 10 lengths, and he earned a 1:15 Beyer speed figure. So if he runs that kind of race, he's going to be tough to beat in the Breeders' Cup Classic. And he's also versatile. That's what makes him tough as well. So for him, he was earlier in his career was just a stone closer. He would come from well back, and then he learned to be closer to the pace. And then once he was able to be more versatile, that made him even more dangerous, and that makes him a dangerous contender in the Breeders' Cup Classic because he's not going to be dependent of the pace like a horse like Sierra Leone. He definitely needs pace help and racing luck. Sovereignty will make his own luck, and he'll get into the race earlier if the pace isn't as fast. He can sit back further if the pace is fast. And I think we all wonder what might have been if his connections opted to run in the Preakness Stakes. We might have witnessed the Triple Crown winner this year, but that's something we'll never know. But we do know that he's a very talented horse. He's your favorite to win the 3-year-old championship and the Horse of the Year if he wins this Breeders' Cup Classic. So that's my early look at my top 8 contenders in the Breeders' Cup Classic. We could see some changes. Some horses, we'll have to see if horses like Nysos, Mindframe make the race after a Nysos scratch with a foot bruise and Mindframe lost his rider last time. Hopefully there's going to be no injuries. Hopefully Forever Young comes in from Japan, and we may see some performances in upcoming races like the Pennsylvania Derby, the Lucas Classic, some races like that that may produce some Breeders' Cup Classic contenders. And if you're interested in my full card analysis, I'm covering full cards this summer for the remainder of the Del Mar summer meet from September 5th through 7th. And then after Del Mar is over, I'm going to cover full cards at Santa Anita for their autumn meet, and I'll be back to Del Mar for their fall meet. I'm going to be doing full cards for both Breeders' Cup days. I do my annual Breeders' Cup full cards each day, And you can go to the runawayhorse.com on my shop page for my upcoming full card schedule and to purchase my full card products. And I will include a link to that shop page in the video description below. And I always email my analysis 1 or 2 days before race day, and I update tickets after scratches each race day. And all of my full card highlights can be found, which depending on the track I'm covering for Del Mar, if you go over to my Del Mar page at therunawayhorse.com, I do weekly Del Mar handicapping reports. I go over the track bias, winning jockeys and trainers, stakes recaps, and my full card highlights. And you can find all of that at therunawayhorse.com on my Del Mar page. And check out my Better Bets free picks page at therunawayhorse.com if you want a free pick from around the country each day. And I do a Horse of the Day video series at Del Mar. I've been covering these Horse of the Day videos throughout their summer meet, and through the first 28 days of the summer meet, my top choices have 12 wins, 4 runner-up finishes, and 5 show finishes. Now 3 more days to go for my Del Mar Horse of the Day videos. This Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and that'll be the end of the Del Mar summer meet, and I'll probably be doing a Horse of the Day video at Santa Anita as well in the autumn. So keep checking my channel for handicapping videos, news videos, today's racing digest videos, horse racing video shorts, and more. And like, comment, and share these videos if you like them. Subscribe to my channel as well. It's free to subscribe. We recently went over 7,000 subscribers. Let's keep this channel growing, and I want to thank everybody for watching my videos and supporting my work. And until I see you next time, good luck at the races.